All right, so everybody, we are live. This is a special episode of Conversations with Cheryl. We are here this morning. Um, it's not as happy as most of the conversations with Cheryl are. I have joined some mothers here today to talk about police brutality and our children. Um, Yeah, we're going to talk about police brutality and our children. As you know, I'm Cheryl Lacey Donovan. Joining me this morning is Kim Landry, Misty Telford, Lakeisha Earls, Danica Carruthers, and we hope to soon be joined by Nicolette Hines and Deborah Hunt. And they have graciously decided to give me a portion of their Saturday morning so we can have this discussion and talk about not only about how we feel about what's happening to our children, but also maybe come up with some strategies or some things that we can do as mothers in particular, but as human beings as a whole, to change the trajectory of what's happening right now. I believe that we all feel a collective trauma as a result of what has happened. I believe that we feel a collective anger with regards to what's happened because we actually saw this man in George Floyd literally lose the life out of his body. And I think we all were shocked. I believe we all were pained by it. And when we heard him call out for his mother, I think that we all collectively as mothers felt that. Here's this child. He's a grown man, but at the end of the day, he's still somebody's child. And I believe we felt that collectively. And now we're all trying to deal with that trauma and with that pain and just trying to figure out where we go. Where we go from here. So I know these ladies in particular had a very strong reaction to what occurred. So I think I'm going to start with Danica and maybe Danica tell us a little bit about how you felt about that or what was going on in your mind when you saw this occur.
Well, I felt that George Floyd called all mamas to the forefront.
Yeah.
As a mother of an adult son, it pained me to see that life was just so disregarded like that. But I really felt the mother aspect of it because, at the heart of who I am a mother first and foremost. And, I could just imagine as a mother being able to hear my child crying out for me and not being able to do something. And one of the things that came to the forefront for me when I saw that was, I don't care what nationality you are, what race you are, what religion you are, what political affiliation you are. If you are a mother, you can only imagine what it would feel like to watch your child lose his life like that. And I would challenge you to multiply that by 1,000 to really connect to how you would feel. I feel that I just feel like mothers need to rise up now, Cheryl. That's what I'm feeling. I feel like the mother's voice, the woman's voice needs to speak up now, needs to stand up now because you know the time of talking is done, man. It's like action needs to happen because it is not acceptable for this kind of thing to continue going on. So, what is the solution? And that's what I want to challenge mothers with. What is the solution that we can all bring to the table to eradicate this foolishness?
Before we get off today, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Some things that I believe that we can help to push for and to create that change. Because right now, I'm all for the protests. I think the protests are awesome. I think they're absolutely necessary and needed. But then after we protest, then what? That's the questions we have to ask. What do we do after we walk in the streets and march in the streets and let them know that we're unified on this issue? Then what? So we're going to talk about some of those strategies. But, I think about what you said with regards to women. And I know for centuries, particularly as African-American women, we have seen our men being hanged and killed. And that over the years, over the centuries, that's had an enormous impact on us and on the way that we see ourselves, the way that we see the men in our lives and things like that. Does anybody want to speak on that and how that has collectively affected us over the generations?
I can definitely speak on that. I have experienced that firsthand. Um, when years ago, one of my cousins was killed by a police officer in a leaf after the police officer spoke to my auntie and told her that they were going to kill my cousin, and they shot him in the back. Yes, he was in the midst of committing a crime, but he was surrendering. They came to the scene. The police came to the scene, and there was some history as well. So we already knew, why they killed him. But when they came to the scene, he was surrendering. He had his back turned. All the witnesses were there, and he had his hands up in the air, and they still shot him in the back and killed him. And my aunt, she had filed a suit against the police department, and then they threatened her to hurt his brother. And so through intimidation, and because we didn't have, the technology that we have now, and things were not, as, everybody recording, and not as as upfront and exposed as it is now. She just kind of let the ball drop on it.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I know that feeling of injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And even with my own son, living in Cyprus and having him to be targeted, just to be targeted because he has dreadlocks, and even in school, having to go to the school board, because of racism. And it runs deep, within my heart, the passion for this. And I do think it has to be more than a protest. I do think that some type of way there has to be some communication and dialogue between our cities, in our own city and in our own region, and establishing some type of partnership or something with, police departments, to regulate how they treat our people, and to start some conversation. I just think that it has to be some meetings and some conversation, and some action behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would agree with that. And I know, ladies, if you all have questions you want to throw out there, feel free to do that. You can or at any point, any commentary that you want to make with regards to where you stand on the issue, feel free to jump in at any given time. This is a conversation. We're just trying to create some conversation around this issue, and how we collectively uh, begin to move forward from where we are right now, because it's ridiculous when I think about, back in the 60s, the song What's Going On, and that song still resonates now. Some of the same things that they were talking about in those types of songs, we're asking that same question, and here we are in 2020, and I just don't believe that we still have to ask that question. I think that part of the reason why we started to become somewhat comfortable is that it wasn't overt, it wasn't in our face. But now everybody has a camera. It ever stopped. I just think that now it's easier to catch it because everybody has a camera, and everybody can pull their camera out and take pictures of what's going on and what's happening in videos, and wake us up, and cause us to realize that it really hasn't stopped. It's still happening. And I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that um, that it's not so much now, that it's more prevalent, but that it's because we just are able to see it more often?
I would definitely say that it's not more prevalent. It's that it's visible, because we didn't even pay attention to it as much. We've gotten so accustomed to social biases and being judged and criticized that we even adjust who we are because we know that we're going to be judged. I remember having the conversation with my son, because he is 6'9" and 330 pounds, that he needs to not ever get stopped by the police, always follow the law and do the best that he can, even though I know that, they can even stop you when you haven't done anything. But I told him, please, son, don't ever do anything that's going to provoke the police to have to engage with you, because they're going to just shoot you on sight. They're not even going to ask questions. They aren't going to be concerned about your character. And I mean, now that it's become more prevalent and it's in the news, and now that we're seeing it all over the place, I mean, there were posts all along, but because George Floyd passed away, it brought the whole world into this this truth that's been happening all this time, you know.
Yeah. Misty, I think you were getting ready to say something also.
Yeah, you talked about, everybody has a smartphone, everybody is videoing, everybody is, monitoring everything. They pull out their phone. Okay, but in some facets, how has the video helped the victory here? I
It
mean,
has
really
not.
honestly, I mean, yes,
It has
it
not.
captured, what happened and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, like my stance here is on both sides, because I am the mother of biracial children, white mother, black father. Okay, so what do I say to my children, my grown children, during this time that can make up for the brutality that is happening right now in the world? And I believe it was Sam Cooke that said, "What, a change gonna come?" I believe. Okay, well, how the hell long it's gonna take?
Right.
I mean, people march for this, for these things, for social equality and all of the things that are going on, right, that we're able to do right now, for interracial marriages and interracial children and voting privileges and all this kinds. But yet Black Americans are still being killed
Mm-hmm.
on video, live.
Mm-hmm.
And you have law enforcement, people in high places, come on, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that are being allowed to keep doing this. I
Mhm.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
how many people got to get killed?
Right.
How many people on video, on
Mm-hmm.
film,
Mm-hmm.
murders on film?
Yep.
Okay, they were lynchings years ago, but now we have them on video doing it, and still, yeah, we have movements, we have riots that's going on, and yes, it moves things. But how many people still have to be killed because people do not have fruits of the spirit, and
Yeah.
racism is taught?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How many?
If I can jump in on the heels of what Misty is saying, Misty has biracial children. I am the product of biracial parents. My mother was white. My father was black. I was not born and raised in the United States. I was born and raised in the Bahamas. But even as Nicolette was talking, and she was talking about the fear, and we've been fussing and fighting, but not fixing. And the reason why is because we have been allowing fear to keep us subservient. Fear is a conditioning of the mindset. And, so Keisha was talking about, she's had this conversation with her son. My son is 6'8". He's not, 300 and something pounds, but he's tall, right? And he has dreadlocks. And I've never had that conversation with him. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I believe that as long as we continue to operate in a place of fear, we continue to create more of the thing of which we're afraid of. And we need to start fixing. It's like, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. But we have to really come face to face with, how are we operating in fear to continue to keep this way? Because if you keep telling your children over and over again, be careful of the police, don't get stopped by the police, put your hands up, we're creating more of the same condition. If you think about it, speak those things that be not as though they are. And we're continuing to speak the problem rather than seek and stand in the solution. And the truth of the matter is, we're all going to die. None of us have come here to stay. So I want to put a different perspective on this. We're all just passing through. And if we allow fear of death to limit us, to hinder us, to keep us small, to keep us from doing the thing that God has created us to be powerful in, we're never going to be able to fix the problem. We continue to reiterate the problem by teaching our children to be careful of the police. Man, if the police aren't working, that freaking system need to change. And that's what we need to start standing up in. Fixing that needs to change. Now, our children don't need to be limited and be careful what they do and how they walk and how they talk. No, we got to eradicate the problem. That's where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
y'all. I felt that, y'all. That Bahamian accent came out. I'm sorry, y'all. I felt it.
Yes, I'm with you on that. The system. I don't want to say the system needs to be afraid of us, but in a way they do. They need to. There needs to be some teeth put into it to where this is not acceptable. This is not accept. It's not acceptable for you to just stop somebody because they're black. It's not acceptable to just uh, 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 utilize your authority to hold people down. It's not acceptable. And you're right. That is part of what the kinds of changes we need to see, because this man, it's a generational. I don't even know what the word is of how I think we all are feeling right now. I think we're tired. I think we've grown weary. I think that we've become I don't know. I think that we all just collectively want to exhale. But the only way that can happen is if there are some true changes and some true transformation happening. People have talked about it a lot, but I don't know that it has actually happened. We hear it, but I haven't been able to see it. I haven't seen the change because it's happening too much and it's occurring too many times over and over and over again. Kim, we haven't heard from you yet. What do you think about some of the issues that we've been talking about so far?
I agree with all the ladies. Part of the problem is we've allowed it, and yes, it's more to the forefront. But I think what happened to George Floyd, not only did we see it, the world saw it, and they saw how inhumane he was treated. They saw how this person had no regard for his life, just on his neck with his hands in his pocket or on his hip, wherever they were. That made no sense. And so that, on top of everything that we've gone through, we saw that. And when he called out mama, like the lady said, I heard my son. I have a 20-year-old. I heard my son, and I felt that I couldn't be there to be with my son. So at that moment, he became every Black mother's son. And we are tired. And for you to kill one of our sons like that with no regard, that's a problem. And you're right, we have to fix it. It's time out we need to march. Yeah, we need to be heard, but we also need to vote. We need to get in these positions where we can actually make a change. We need somebody to go in there and talk for our kids, for our daughters, for our husbands. I mean, enough is enough. I like the ladies, enough is enough. And we as mothers, because depending on who you ask, life begins with the Black woman, but life definitely begins with the woman. And so it's for us to take a stand for our family, for our kids. And they're going to have to deal with us. They're going to have to deal with the consequences of taking our kids from us. We have to set up, like you say, set a plan in motion to get something done, because enough is enough.
Yeah. And Cheryl, Jesus, Lord. I'm feeling it, y'all. Y'all gotta excuse me. I'm feeling it. Kim, I say this all the time. The one thing that everybody in this existence has in common is we all have come through the womb of a woman.
Yes.
As mothers, we have to rise to the forefront, because see, all we've been doing is treating the symptom, but it's time to destroy the root. And if you go back to the root, see, the police, if you think about it, y'all, police are doing exactly what they have been given the mandate to do. Police. Remember one time it used to be peace officers? Their role was to keep the peace. Now they have been given the permission to police. I'm sorry, but that's two different energies. And we have to get into that. That root has to be destroyed, because the truth of the matter is they are doing exactly what they have been assigned to do. That needs to change. They need to be keeping the peace. If you feel peaceful about an officer, you don't have a problem calling him. It is not an option for some people to feel peaceful about calling them and other people to feel afraid. We have to destroy the root and stop treating the the symptom. That's all we've been doing is put the Band-Aid on the symptom. It's time to cut that freaking brain tumor out. Time to get that brain tumor out now. I'm sorry.
I agree with you. I'm sorry. Demilitarizing the police force is probably on top of the list, because you're right. They're supposed to serve and protect, and they're supposed to be peace officers that keep the peace, and they haven't been that for a very long time. They are very militarized, and when you have a military, the military is there. That's what they're there for, to fight. They're there to be military and to exude violence, if you will, over people. And I think that's going to be number one. That has to be the top of the list, is that we go in and demilitarize the police force and transform the way they think about themselves and what their actual job duties are. Somebody else was about to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to interject something right there. Um, there's a couple of things. Well, one of them is that they are working on a federal level to, and they started that George Floyd um, law on a federal level against systematic racism, because we need to call this thing because what it is in within these police departments. The problem that we're dealing with too is systematic racism within the force, you know. um and I know that they're working on a federal level, but I think the more ground will be covered is when groups start to form, subgroups form on a local state level that is in the face of our own personal police departments and holding them accountable for systematic racism, and involving it within the field of, protecting and serving our communities. And I believe that there should be dialogue. I believe it should be dialogue between the community, the mothers that
Mhm.
felt the passion, like when George Floyd called out his mother's name, the mothers that feel for their sons. I feel that they should be in the face of these police chiefs and officers saying, how do we, change statistics in our own state, in our own city? What are we going to do locally to
Mhm.
protect our children? What are y'all putting into place, to assure that when a traffic stop, that our babies are going to be able to come home? If they commit a crime, they should be able to go through the due process. They should have their day in court. They should not die on the scene. How can we confront these issues with racism on the force, on your force? How do we deal with that? Those are things. And like I said, the personal issue. Someone mentioned that there was a personal issue that the cop that killed George Floyd, that he had with Mr. Floyd. And some of these cops have had run-ins with the young men that they have issues with, and they have, like, it's like bad beef, like gangs on the street or something. What level of professionalism, is that, where you holding grudges against certain people and you kill them on the street in the name of your badge,
Mhm.
things like that. I mean, it's just, those are topics I think that has to be also discussed. We know that what they're doing on a federal level, but we also, I think in every state there should be a local conversation going on in our
Mhm.
police departments.
Mhm. I know that at one point I have heard them talk about, and I don't know if we still have them or not, but the community boards that somehow somewhat oversee the police departments. And if you're going to institute those boards, they need to have some type of teeth again within them to be able to say, okay, well, if this police officer has already had 3 strikes, and he's out. When you hear about these police officers that have had like 10, 11, 12 infractions, run-ins, or whatever, and you still have them on the police force, that's a problem. There should be something there that
Yes.
says once three strikes you out if you are a criminal, why not 3 strikes you out if you're I think that needs to happen. And at least here in Houston, I remember years ago, Police Chief Brown, he became Mayor Brown, but he instituted or began some community policing. And I think that has helped us a little bit here to not be quite as bad as some of the other places, because a lot of the officers in our communities are from our communities, and that makes a huge difference. And you can't have a conversation without talking about mental health. A stronger presence with when you have mental health issues from someone, and you need to treat that differently. I know even in my own neighborhood, there's one older gentleman. Everybody knows who he is, calls him by name, but he obviously has mental health issues. So because the police are from the community, they know, okay, we don't need to just immediately pull out our guns and get ready to shoot this guy or whatever, because we know him, we know who he is, and we're aware of his situation, so we can handle it differently. So I think that, the community policing piece is going to be important as well, because if you're not from that community, you're not going to understand the dynamics, of how our community operates and how our community runs. And you're not going to know the people that are here. And, well, that's Miss So-and-so's son. He's over here being mischievous, as opposed to, okay, we just need to pull out a gun and start shooting 3 seconds after we see him with a BB gun or something.
I agree with what Nicolette was saying. Part of it too is the hiring process, I believe, because a lot of these people are coming through. They were bullied when they were younger. They, maybe some black guy beat them up and took his lunch money or something. And he's held on to that. And so he puts himself into a position where he has a gun, he has a badge, he has a little bit of authority. So now that boy that 10-year-old boy is now remembering that, okay, I'm 30, but I remember what this black boy did to me. So then you have those instances where you have your KKK people that are in the law enforcement arena. So you have a lot of, I think, and I know they give them psych exams. I mean, if you're smart enough, you can pass a psych exam. But I think we need to go dig a little deeper into these becoming police officers, so they can actually man and be objective when they are out on the street with our citizens.
I've even heard them throw around possibly when they have these incidences where police officers do these types of things, to go in and have them drug tested. Were they on steroids? Were they taking some other kind of drugs that hopped them up and made them, maybe not be able to operate the way that they should? I mean, I think that there are a lot of different things that need to occur to change the system, to dismantle the system. I don't know if it's going to be defunding police departments. I don't know if that's the answer, but I do know that we need to change the justice system. It needs a whole overhaul, period. And one of the other things that comes to mind also is changing mindsets, transforming mindsets. And for me, I think that starts with each one of us. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. I talked to, I think Pastor Lachey is even on here today, but I was talking to her on a live last week. And even the speech that we use sometimes plays into the kinds of things that we see happening. And I'm going to give you an example. When you are in company, you're company with one another, and you say, "Ooh, look at all those Mexicans piled up in that car. Look at all those Mexicans living together in that house." Okay, that creates a certain mindset. Or when you see, for women that are being mistreated, and you hear a man in the locker room and you're another man, and they begin to talk bad about women, and you participate, or you don't say anything to them about that. Okay, you're creating a mindset where you're becoming desensitized to that. So if an individual is consistently hearing these negative portrayals and this negative information about Black people or about women, about Hispanic people or what have you, then it's going to remain the same, because now they're desensitized to it. So we just automatically believe that this is okay, because this is how, and even we have been a part of those kinds of conversations and have made those kinds of statements, not thinking about it being malicious, but just because that's the kind of banter that we keep. So some of that is going to have to start even with us.
That's right.
Even in our own homes and coming out of our own mouths, and how we speak about other people when we are in mixed company, because that makes a difference.
Absolutely. Because Cheryl, the power of life and death lies in the tongue. And I'm so happy that you touched on mindset, because if people would be honest with themselves, there is a mindset of us and them. I don't care what area of life you deal in. But if you are a believer in a creator, whether you call it God, universe, whatever you call it, if you are a believer in a creator, an originator, and we are all extensions of that creator, then there cannot be any us and them. Nicolette talked about, and I think it was Lakeisha, about sons. It's not just men, it's not sons that are being affected by this, it's daughters. And I have a personal story of that, but this is how fear and your mindset creates your reality. Your thinking creates your reality. My daughter was driving from Houston to Florida to go on vacation. And it was around the time when Sandra Bland was killed. And my daughter was consumed with thoughts of being stopped by the police. And I kept trying to guide her, stop thinking about it. You're going to create it. And she kept thinking about it. She kept talking about it. In Alabama, she was stopped by a white older police officer. She called me as she was being stopped. And I went straight into prayer mode, calling all them angels. I'm like, all right, seeing that she doesn't create her reality, but this is not an option for me. There's nothing going to happen to any of my children. And I just went into prayer. And she called me later and she said a black officer stopped on the scene, asked her some questions and told her to go. But she was not speeding. She had a cruise control on. She was staying within the confines of the law. You know what this officer told her? He stopped her. The first thing he asked her is if she had drugs in the car, told her that her tire hit the yellow line on the road. And that's why he stopped her. But again, I told her when she drove off, I said, now that you have created your experience of being stopped by the police, do you think you can now drive to Florida in peace? But it's the mindset. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. We have the power to speak those things that be not as though they are. And understanding that, we need to start having different conversations. And I love the name of this show, A Mother's Cry. Mothers need, we need to start a mother's movement. Mothers crying out for change.
I think a deeper issue, even growing up in the South, is the way that we were raised. I mean, even there are social biases that absolutely exist, even within the African American community. We judge each other and criticize each other on skin color. So the issue is very deep rooted. It's segregation and separation of who's better than whom and all of that on stigmas and things that we've been taught even growing up or things we've witnessed. And I mean, you see, everybody I'm sure has seen the YouTube video with the child who picked the white child is good and the black child is bad when they were asking a young child, because those biases do exist. And it is a change of mindset. It's something that is very deep rooted. And we all have them. We actually all have social biases. We all look at each other. There's a social bias that Black people can't get along because we can't come together. I mean, that's all a part of a mindset that we have to change, because if we don't come together, nothing is going to change.
Right.
I wanted to say something in respect to that defunding the police thing, Cheryl, that you were speaking about. You said you didn't know if that was the answer. You know, I think in every field, like in the mental health field, they are big on diversity. I mean, diversity is a big deal. It's a big deal in the mental health field. There's yearly training on diversity. You know, they have to mix and mingle different races. Like you can't, employ all Caucasian. You're not supposed to just employ all Caucasians and all Hispanics. I think also there's an issue with you come. They pulled my son over before, and when I came to the scene because my son would text me. I came to the scene, and when I got there, there's like all of these Caucasian cops, that was there, nothing but Caucasian cops, and then more were pulling up, so intimidating, and it was simple because they were parked in a handicapped spot at the store.
Wow.
And someone called the police on them. And so they had them on the side of the curb. It was he and his friends. And they had them on the side of the curb for all of this long time. And all of these cops was, pulling up, and they all were Caucasian. And that's a real big issue, within our local departments, friends. Most cops are they're each other's friends. That's how, if you are a part of some type of racist group, of course you're going to group up with the people, that you click up with, when you talk about diversity, what about continued training on systematic racism and diversity within our police forces, mixing and mingling not just white and black cops, but not just white cops, but putting white and black cops partnership together, as well as when a woman is stopped, making sure you call. I remember they would call a female cop to the scene if a male cop stopped a lady, things like that. So I think that if they really want to change, those are things that they would do, and they would require ongoing training on diversity, where these cops would have to sit into, trainings every year and actually implement, structures within the system that would combat, racism within the force. Because they're not going to find out that this person is connected to white supremacy, or this person is connected to Black Panthers or whatever. They're not going to find that out just by looking at them. The only way, you have to mix and mingle and kind of divide and train ongoing.
Unfortunately, I think, even there are other races in the police force that still will abuse their power. I mean, it's a mindset as to a lack of value for human life, a lack of value for African American people, for Hispanic people. It's just a lack of compassion, and we don't. No one is taught, I guess, to value people. The compassion of people is gone. So they come in and they just want to assert authority. And that's the mindset. I'm over you. You do what I say. I don't have to acknowledge you. I don't have to get your side. You're guilty until I say anything else. You're guilty just because I stopped you. Right. Because I had to stop what I was doing to deal with you. I have a problem with you. And you're the problem. So, I mean, once you get that mindset, and that's been the mindset of a lot, because it hasn't just been white police officers that have been doing these things. There've actually been Black police officers doing these things with Black people. So, I mean, definitely a mindset where we've diminished our own value. Like our own value is diminished because that's the way we've literally been conditioned to think that we are not as good as we are, or that we don't have value and that we don't have worth. In this society, they have always treated us like we were less than, like we were not even as good as animals. And when you look at it like that, it definitely is deeper, than just the white supremacy, because that's just a part of it. Some folks do what they do just to try to fit in, so that they can find a place to belong, and they're trying to do the best they can, but they're doing what they know because that's what they feel like they have to do to be accepted in this society. I mean, we even in America, it's a lot of people in corporate America. You make all kinds of adjustments to fit in so that you can, be successful, because if you're seen a certain light as a woman, being seen in a certain light in a industry dominated by men, it's a lot of adjustments that we make. There are a lot of biases that we have to overcome as a people.
Yeah. Misty, were you going to say something?
Yeah. I think it goes back to a lot of the things that a lot of the women have said this morning. And mentality is a big thing. You think about a person that is incarcerated in the judicial system right now, and you think about the Aryan Brotherhood and the Blacks and the Hispanics, and they have to click up to be able to survive while they're incarcerated. And then I think that is true whether it's incarceration in the physical or spiritual in your mind. Okay. And there's a lot of things that happen when a person goes into the judicial system. First of all, it's designed to desensitize the man or woman that goes inside of the building per se. But what happens is, to desensitize them, it takes away their name and gives them now a number. Okay. And then everybody's in all the same clothes. Everybody's head is shaved or however it works. It devalues the person individually. They all sleep in the same area. Nothing is private anymore. So a lot of times the judicial system is designed to desensitize. And then, the Texas judicial system is on the stock market. Okay, so there is money in the prison systems. Okay, just recently, I've helped my sister in many facets, and we've had some problem with my niece, which is also my goddaughter. But guess what? Anything that she did, there was no penalty for it as a juvenile. And we kept saying, golly, why is she doing all of these different things? And there's still no penalty. We can't do anything. We can't take her to juvenile. We can't do this. We can't do that until she hurts somebody or this or that. But guess what? We found out there's no money in the juvenile system. It's all in the detention centers. It's all in the detention centers. Okay. And so it's really, and what happens is, especially to the man, when he is incarcerated, now it creates genocide. It creates genocide. Now it takes away this man. If you incarcerate a man for 30 years, now his bloodline, his lineage cannot be exchanged, and now he has no children. His seed can never be a child. It can never live on. There's no legacy. There's no lineage, and it values the man. And it's a sad thing when our judicial system is designed to do this. It's sad.
And Misty, you hit such a good point. Because I was thinking about that. There's a quota even for police officers stopping people. They have a quota every month. So there's a pressure for them to stop people. The whole system is frigged and rigged and needs to be fixed. Yes, that's why they're stopping people, because they have to stop a certain amount of people. They're incarcerating people because there's money behind it. The whole system is broken, and the whole thing needs to come toppling down and just be restructured.
Yeah, and that's one of the strategies that I've even talked about, is to stop policing these minor things, these little bitty infractions that end up getting people killed. They might have just had a minor marijuana possession, or maybe trespassing or loitering, and before you know it, now it's this huge, big, like you said, 5, 6, 7 police cars around this one person, and all they were doing was loitering or trespassing. Come on, can we stop the policing of that? It doesn't require all of that.
Right.
And I wanted to say something, and you're right, Ms. Donovan. I wanted to say something too about like all of these killings in Chicago. I want to say this too about mentality, and this is to the effect of our African American youth, as Misty was talking about, and also to our African Americans mentality. In Chicago, all of these deaths, over a weekend because of black on black crime, sending a message that our males are our young male are dangerous, that they are, insensitive. They're killing children, their own race, and then the police has to form, they have to form a strategy in order to combat this problem within our communities, and so now we have to lean on, because the civilians are not able to fix the problem, so we have to lean on the police to go in and fix this issue with, African Americans killing African Americans, but personally, if we're going to fix this issue too, I think it has to raise a conversation. They said, well, we don't want to run that, we don't want to talk about black on black crime while we're trying to deal with, police brutality and systematic racism. But the truth is, that is a part of the problem, whether we want to look at it, because one way we're saying we don't want the police. They want to defund the police, and they want to take away certain things. We don't want the police, but then when we have to deal with our in-house problem, we gravitate to the police. We need the police to step in, and so that's a problem. And I was thinking, we scream Black Lives Matter, but to get the attention of these young people, they listen to a lot of the rap music. They listen to, if our rappers would rise up and take at least 15 minutes in their concerts to address black on black murders and crimes, if they would march in Chicago and throw rap concerts just to address gang violence and black on black crime, if we would do something in our own community to help change the stigma that's on our people, you know, that makes a difference as well. I truly think we also need to, I remember when we were young, when you got in trouble was at school and you knew your mom, your teacher probably was the issue. She probably did something that was right. Your mom will go up to that school, she will handle that situation. But when she got you home, she gonna deal with your behavior and how you embarrassed her. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
deal with the issue with the police, but we also need to come home and deal with this stuff that's embarrassing us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As a
I think
people,
I definitely believe it's not either or, it's both and. We need to attack both of those things at the same time. And
yes,
if when we're talking about strategies and policy changes and things like that, I remember a time when I would make time to go to city council meetings and to the commissioners court meetings and things like that. And I believe that we have to start doing that again. I think that we need to go and take these. We can't just march and protest. We need to have the actual strategies policies that we want to change and say, okay, stop policing these minor offenses. Have the police 3 strikes and you're out. If they have more than 3 offenses against them, they need to go. We need to have community boards. We need to have specific things, a list of things that we want them to do to change, and keep drilling it into them through city council meetings, through commissioner court meetings, writing our congressmen, writing, the congressman in the state of Texas, on the federal government, writing the mayor, and as a collective group, sending in petitions and whatever, bombarding them with these specific strategies and changes so that they understand that we mean business, so that and if you can't do it, if you can't get on board with these policy changes that we're giving you, then we're not going to vote you back into office. We'll find somebody that can.
Right.
But even like Nicolette said, and I'm going to challenge the mothers again, because as Nicolette was talking, I was just having thoughts of like some mothers would say, I'm going to take you to the police, or I'm going to call the police for you, right? We got to look. Charity begins at home, and mothers need to come face to face. A lot of mothers with how they are parenting their children. There's a lot of anger. So Nicolette was talking about this black on black crime. There's a lot of anger within the Black community, and a lot of it begins at home, okay? And it begins with how children are being parented, because you cannot expect the school system, you cannot expect the police, you cannot expect the community to do your job. As a parent, you need to be investing. You can only get a return where you put an investment, because children are not born with all of these biases. They're not born with all of this anger. They're not born with all of these issues. A lot of it comes from the home and how children are being parented or not being parented. And, I love, again, mothers cry. And it's time for the mothers to stand up and speak up, because a lot of these children are being raised by single mothers who themselves are angry because of what has happened in the relationship. And they're spewing that anger onto their children. They're poisoning their children against authority, which in a lot of cases is the male figure or the father, right? Because of the whole issue. And I'm telling you, we have to get to the root. We have to stop treating the symptom, but a lot of this stuff begins at home as well.
I agree 100%, because back in the day, y'all briefly touched on it. When you got in trouble at school, you knew you're gonna get in trouble, whooping from school, you're gonna get another whooping at home. If you mess up in Miss Susie's yard, then Miss Susie can whoop your butt, and then when you get home, you're gonna get another whoop. That is gone. Now it's the mindset of, don't touch my kid. My kid ain't gonna do this. My kid ain't gonna do that. So we have to get back to what I call the old school parenting, and that's where I come from, where I whoop your butt where you mess up at. Like, we don't have any of that anymore. And it's so sad that the kids, a lot of them are raising themselves, they're running rapid. And then when they get in trouble, the parent or the mom or whomever wants to say, my kid didn't do that, or they did this or that to my kid. And we as mothers, and we had a rally that was scheduled for tomorrow, Black Mothers Demanding Justice, because it is a movement. Women have, like you say, women have to stand together, because these are our kids. They are our kids, and we have to stand up for our kids, for our husbands, for our daughters, sons, everybody. We have to do it. it's not going to happen unless we stand up. That's the way I feel.
We also have to stop rewarding bad behavior. Okay. I mean, these children are out here flunking classes, not going to school, truancy, all kinds of stuff. But we're in a line paying $300 for Jordans,
Right.
and rewarding bad behavior instead of talking about education and discipline and the things that need to be done. Also, a lot of, and I think you spoke on it earlier, Cheryl, about putting people in the community that are from the community to be able to police the areas and things like that. Sometimes, and a lot of times, cultural issues can be cultivated with conversations and consistency and not correction. Okay, like, put people in the areas that are diverse, that can be able to say, you know what, I grew up in that type of environment. I grew up in that family, so I can understand what is going on here. And a lot of times we put white cops in Fifth Ward, or we put Black cops in River Oaks, or whatever, and how it works, and it don't fit. It does not help the community at all. And these are just some things that we need to do. And I mean, nothing's gonna happen unless we rally together and we quit having drinks at Papados and Papacitos and stop some of that foolishness and go stand in line with some of these mothers that their children have died. Stand in the hot sun and fight for what we think is right. Or is it going to be your son or my son? But until it's one of ours, we won't do that. We won't do that. And it's a sad day when this is still happening and we haven't chosen something that we can do to make the community better.
The word of God says that my people perish for the lack of knowledge because they refuse the knowledge. And I think a part of that is that we don't take the time to even read or research the legislature. We don't read and research the politicians. We don't study who we're voting into office. A lot of times we do the blanket vote. Just decide, okay, this is Democrat or this is whatever. I'm going to vote for this person, or I'm going to do, or we don't vote at all, and we have to change the way that we handle politics. A lot of times it's more, I don't want to be bothered because they're going to do what they want to do. That's been the mindset. Well, they've been doing what they want to do all this time. Right. And we have to step up and start really taking the time to understand what it is, who it is we're voting for, what their real agendas are, and making sure that there are no biases, that it is fair treatment that's taking place, and that we fully understand these bills that are being passed and what they mean, because we'll vote on something based on one principle, but in the fine print we'll miss all these other things that are taking place. And I think that's another part of the issue.
Yeah. I really love what Misty said as well, that we got to vote, and that's true. I agree completely. And I love what Misty said. She said, not until it happens to our children that we actually, decide we want to take a stand. But what about this mother who just lost her child? Or what about this person that's already facing this dilemma? Why are we not standing with them? I truly believe that there is strength in numbers. And when we have these conversations and this dialogue, I believe that there has to be a plan of action, something that we do. And she said something that was also powerful. She said consistency. A lot of times these things happen, and then something tragic happens, and then bam, everybody's on fire, and then after a while, the conversation sort of, dwindles away, and then we're back to life as usual until the next tragedy. And now we got another fire going. The thing is that at some point we have to establish this fire and we got to keep it burning, and we all have to be willing to, get up and participate, even when it hasn't happened to our child yet. So I think that is very powerful.
And ladies, I'm gonna say this. I definitely 150% agree with you that we have to vote. That's absolutely correct. But then we also have to hold the people that we're voting for accountable, and make sure that I've put 5 policy changes in the links down here, and I'll talk about them in just a minute. But we have to, just voting for them is not enough. We need to have an agenda lined up for them and say, okay, we're putting you in office. This, and this is what you need to do for us because we voted for you. And if you can't get this done or can't create a coalition around getting this done, then we're going to go and vote for somebody else that can. Because it's great to vote them in office, but who's holding them accountable? Who's making sure that they're doing the things that need to be done to stop these types of things from happening? So it's great to vote, but it can't just stop with us voting. If we have to go to the city council meetings, we have to go to the commissioner court meetings, we have to send, letters and statements and agendas and say, listen, this X, Y, and Z is what needs to be done and put into place so that our communities and our children can be protected. So yeah, vote, but then we also need to hold them accountable and give them, let them know we intend for you to work while you're there. You need to work for us while you're there.
And not just hold them accountable, but that there be consequences in place for when you don't. And I'm talking about across the board. Mothers with children, like Kim said, mothers need to start, having consequences in place with the law. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, we hold them accountable, means there's a consequence. I actually think 3 strikes is too much. We need to be 1 strike. One strike. Depending on what the strike is, right? It's what we do with our children.
Right.
And there just has to be consequences. We gotta get on top of it, man.
Yep.
And then mobilizing and leadership, because I think a lot of people in our like Cheryl, you are very wise as it relates to voting and how we need to do that and how we need to execute that. I think some people in our African American community, don't know a lot about primary, voting and this, mobilizing teams that actually educate our community on what we need to do as a community, because there's strength in numbers, and having a leader that can lead the people to where, to that justice, and that can teach them on what they need to do, because people would do something if they knew what to do.
If they knew what to do.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully this is a start. Hopefully this is a platform, and like I said, I wrote them in there. Y'all can take it back to your tribe, and maybe we get together again, or we can't get together together right now, but maybe we come back again on some Zooms or something, and strategically plan how to get this information off this platform and in the hands of the police commissioner and whomever else needs to see it in order to make it happen. So there are 5 things I put in here that I think at least is a start. 1, stop policing minor offenses. Like I said, loitering, trespassing, that kind of thing. That does not require 6, 7, 8 carloads of cops to handle, to the point where you have a person down on the ground and he can't breathe. So that's 1, stop policing a minor offense. The second one, establish some effective civilian oversight structures. Some structures that actually have teeth in them that can say, okay, this person did this, so you need to do something with them, send them back to training, put them off of the force or whatever, and that they actually have the ability to make that happen. Somebody is listening to that group within the police department and can actually get rid of that officer who's a bad officer. The third one, strengthen the local police use of force policy. If you use force, Nick said, one time and you ought to be out, I'll give them free. Depending on what kind of force it is. If it's deadly force, you need to be gone. But if it was excessive force or excessive violence that didn't need to take place, we need to have some laws on the books for them that enforce that, so that, again, consequences. If you do this, this is going to happen. Right now, there aren't any. The fourth one, increase the number of police officers who reflect the communities they serve. And like Misty said, you need to look like me. You need to know this community. You need to come from this community, or at least have some commonalities with me. So you know that if we on the street corner shooting dice, you don't have to come and shoot me because we're on the street corner shooting dice. That's what we do. And just come and tell me, man, y'all take that to the back. Somebody don't have to go to jail for that. Just tell me, man, y'all take that to the back. Because if y'all don't take it to the back, I'm going to have to do that kind of policing that doesn't require putting somebody in jail. And then the last one, along the lines of what Nicolette said, invest in rigorous and sustained training, particularly for implicit bias, and do it consistency. We've heard that word today, consistency. That needs to be done on a consistent basis. Ladies, give you last words before we get off of this live, and then I think I'm going to convene y'all again. I think we got some work to do. Nicolette, you put it out there, so okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I really think you say, well, where do we begin? We begin by putting this stuff on paper, and
Hmm.
we write a letter. And someone was saying a mother's cry. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
you know, uh, uh, I think we start by putting it on paper, and we ask questions with being concerned as parents. What is our Harris County Police Force, putting in place to, make sure that we, do not become the topic of the world in the next police brutality situation, or, you know, and here are some things we had a discussion, and here's some things that we discussed, and we would like to know, you know can we have a conversation, how could we have dialogue, that kind of thing. We start with the boldness of letting them know we are here, and we are
Hmm.
concerned, and we want to know what is the plan, and here are some suggestions that we thought about that we think could help safeguard our children in a better way. That's how I think that's the beginning,
Okay.
and who knows where it goes from there.
Okay. Danica?
And for me, I feel like I don't need to look like you to understand you.
Correct.
I need to hear you to
Hmm.
understand you. I need to be willing to hear you. And so, not just having the conversations, but being willing to listen to what people are saying. And I believe that is why this whole thing with George Floyd is having so much impact, because I don't care what color mother you are. I don't care what your belief system is. I don't care where you come from. If you're a mother, you can relate to your child being kneeled in his neck for 8 minutes and dying for the whole world to see. So I don't
Yes.
need to look like you to
Hmm.
understand you.
To
I need to
understand.
be willing to hear you to understand you. And so this is a great conversation, Cheryl. Thank you so much for putting this platform together and for inviting me to be a part of it. And I would love, love, love to continue this conversation with mothers. Let's figure it out, women. We got it. We
Will
got
do.
it.
Will do. Lakeisha.
I feel like we need to really take the time to really get an understanding of what is going on in legislature, what is going on in with our politics, with our bills. We need to make sure that we're really being thorough in reading, and then we also need to teach our young people. We need to teach our. My daughter came to me about learning, Mom, how do I make a good decision on who to pick at the polls? We really need to sit down
Mm.
and be educated on the people and educated on how to do these things. Come together and train, teach, make sure we do register and get people involved, but definitely do that. And also, like Danica said, we need to definitely get back to compassion and recognizing that people are human beings beyond everything else, beyond skin color. We're all human beings.
Misty.
I'll say one statement. I think as a mother and as a community, it's our responsibility to hear our children's voice before they're dying or dead.
Mm. Mm. That's good. That's good. And last but not least, Kim. Just so you guys will know, Kim was part of the organizing group that was going to do the Mother's March on tomorrow at 2:30. Obviously, once again, this pandemic has given us a gut punch. But Kim, as part of your comments, if you could just tell us a little bit about that and how that came about and what you guys are planning to do going forward.
Okay, well, when George Floyd was killed, and it just kind of shook everything. And like most mothers, I was really upset, didn't know what to do. And I'm one of those people, if I see a problem, I try to be a part of the solution. And so I kind of went in hibernation, so to speak. I was just kind of disconnected and prayed because it was just something. I felt like something had to be done, and I didn't know what to do. And so a girlfriend of mine called, and we kind of talked about it, and then we came up with this rally, and we named it Black Mothers Demanding Justice, because at this time it's like our families, our children, our husbands are under attack. Our families are under attack, and something has to be done. And we just want to make a statement. We demand justice for our families. And so that's how we came up with the rally and the name. And we just kind of planned, and we had everything set for tomorrow. And like you said, COVID just kind of pushed everything back. But I just feel like we as mothers have to take a stand. And as I said earlier, when George said mama, like my heart went to my stomach, because it could have been any of our kids that, and the guy just had no regard for his life. So, I mean, my thing is, I feel like we have to become a part of the solution. We have to be heard, learn what we need to learn, and be a part of the solution and hold people accountable for making sure that they deal with and treat our families and our kids with respect and dignity that they deserve.
Well, ladies, I thank you so much for joining me for this special edition of Conversations with Cheryl. I think that we will be having these more often, and maybe some offline things as well. So as we rally around an agenda, and I guess it'll be called a mother's cry, an agenda for the police department or something. I don't know, but where we rally around these ideas and really push, because that's where the change is going to happen. The change is the marching and the protesting and the all of that is great. They hear us, they see us, but they need to feel us now. They need to feel us, and they need to feel us when we give them an agenda and say, if you can't do this, these are going to be the consequences for you. And I think that this is as good a group as any to start with. Kim, you can pull in your people. We just all get together and make that thing happen. I think that we can do it. We just have to put our minds to it and have a particular strategy in place so that it can come to fruition and manifest. Ladies, again, thank you so much. I love you all. It has truly been a blessing. Everybody, this has been Conversations with Cheryl. I'm Cheryl Lacey Donovan. Join us on Saturdays at 11 a.m. normally for Conversations with Cheryl here on Facebook Live. We also want to remind you that you can go out to the restorehermovement.org and find out some other things that we may be doing within the community. As always, remember that God can do exceedingly and abundantly more than you could ever ask or think, according to the power that works in you. Be blessed. Thank you,
Amen.
ladies.
Thank you.
God
Thank
bless
you.
you all.
Bye.
Bye bye.